That's lovely. Thank you very much.
I'm all up with mementos.
It's going to be a full-on picnic in here, isn't it? Right, is everyone here? Oh, no, still Okay, right. Meeting's gone live, don't swear, we're on air. Okay. Right. Okay, we've got to go through this, so bear with me. This is the extraordinary Regeneration and Property Committee meeting on the 26th of September 2022 on the rising of Regeneration and Property Committee. Before opening this meeting, I'm going to say that everyone in attendance physically must have their electronic device muted, so if you switched it on, stop. Right, okay. Can I ask remote participants to keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not use the camera facility as this can affect the quality of the meeting. Please be advised the meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with Council's data retention policy. Recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SPC or KCC laptop. If you're joining using the link on the website on a mobile or tablet device, it's not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. So, welcome everyone to the Extraordinary Regeneration and Property Committee meeting, including any visiting members attending remotely and members of the public. I'm going to advise you that the following staff are in attendance. So that's Head of Regeneration, Economic Development and Property, Joanne Johnson, and Democratic Services, Billy Axway and Joe Millard. The emergency evacuation procedure. Those present you will have already seen. If you've got anyone got a disability, I don't think that's changed. Good. Any apologies? No?
Apologies for Councillor Sarah Stevens, substitute for Councillor Elliot Jays. Apologies for Councillor Simon Clark, substitute for Councillor Gibson, and apologies for Councillor Marchington.
Okay. Any declarations of interest? Okay, Councillor Burt.
Non-pecuniary interest as a member of the Cleveland Town Council.
Okay, Councillor Darby. Okay. This is a Part B report for the Regeneration and Property Committee to decide. The item is item 4, Queenborough Guild Hall. So I'll ask Joanne Johnson to introduce the report.
Thank you very much. So this short paper is intended to support and I suppose to illustrate the committee paper that we've just looked at on property condition surveys by focusing on a specific example within our property portfolio, namely the Queenborough Guild Hall. So the condition of the Guild Hall was last formally assessed back in December 2018. You can see the surveyor's report which is attached as Appendix A, so you can see there's a sample of what was produced across all the properties. The overall condition of the building is graded B, average, and recommendations were made for works over the resulting of the ensuing 5-year period. Section 2.4 of the report sets out what activity has taken place since then, so the policy list, the remedial repair work that has taken place. The proposal is fundamentally that we include the Queenborough Guild Hall in the programme of the inspection, which is agreed in the last meeting, and I think that is probably all there is to say. It's worth highlighting that the bullet list that you see in the report does not mirror exactly the condition survey, and I think that's known. So the programme of works that we undertake in our properties is always agreed with the tenant, and their views as to what works are a priority might be different to the assessors. So you can see from that list of works in the main report that a number of additional works not referenced in the survey have taken place since it was issued. In addition, we need to highlight that property budgets are finite, and on occasion more urgent works come to light, such as, for example, here following the vehicle accident in High Winds, and needing to take precedence. We do understand the Queen of Guildford that the tenant is satisfied with the works undertaken, and we do maintain a good working relationship with them. Thank you.
Members wish to speak. Councillor Darvish?
Well, going back to what we talked about earlier, having proper work done, I'm a bit confused. On the construction of this guildhall, it says the walls, the main walls of the building are cavity wall. The building was built in the 18th century, isn't it? I don't think that was really what they would have done then. So I would have to query some of the stuff that this surveyor has actually put down. Does he actually look at it? It says here the main walls of the building are cavity wall construction with all elevations having a mixture of brick and render. But it is, was that right? It was built in the 18th century?
Yeah, it'd be unlikely, and I totally agree. And this, when was this survey done? Was it 18? December 18, and I think this absolutely echoes. This was obviously done before the coalition came in. It was done under the previous administration, and I think we've already discussed under the item in the previous meeting. We had concerns about the quality of the report. So, did you want to come back, Councillor Darby?
Well, I was just saying, we actually touched on when the emergency work that was done, where the vehicle crashed into the wall, it knocked off a bit of cement and someone come along with a bucket of cement, smacked it up the wall, and basically that was it, really. I mean, as you might know now that we've had some inspection done in the last couple of days, the glass was blown inside and the renderings blown on the outside and the alley. And what needs doing now. But even then, they sent a gentleman round to have a look at the inside, and he said, I'm not really sure about this, I don't really know what's happened here, I'll have to go away and ask someone.
Yeah.
So I think over the years there have been some concerns about the quality of work that our maintenance contractors carry out. When we've been out to inspect that work, it generally matches the specification that we've set. So that is a broader issue around the budget that we have to undertake these repairs. So we specify that they need to be undertaken to a certain standard. We can't specify a gold-plated standard, if you like, because the budget that's available. The contract generally does the work sufficiently, according to our request. It's something that we can look at going forward. That term maintenance contract is up for renewal in October next year. So that will be informed by the condition surveys, it will be informed by the property asset strategy, and it needs to be informed by the budget that we have available. So they all feed in together, and if there is more budget available for the works, they can be done to a higher specification and standard.
Yeah, picking up on that point first, I mean, this is a grade 2 listed building, and we had similar issues when the work was done a year and a half ago to the wall of the aviation memorial at East Church, and the contractor drilled holes for it, put PVC pipes through it, and the response was, well, they've done it within spec and it's the budget, but of course it's a grade 2 star memorial of national importance. You're almost better not doing the work if you're going to do it poorly, because you'll end up doing more damage in the long run. And what actually happened there, you end up spending more money because you get the contractor to come back, or you get a different contractor in to rectify the issues. Some of the issues under 2.4 are issues that have obviously been reported to the council, but I would say some of those are incomplete. I mean, the works to the clock, Smiths did an absolutely fantastic job of refurbishing the clock face and the drum and everything, and took it away for quite a significant amount of time and brought it back. But I'm not entirely sure that there was a new internal movement. I think they did works to the existing, but the clock is still losing time, and the council's aware of that. And I got an email this week from Debbie to say that Smiths are coming back out again. But that's been ongoing now for a couple of years, and it still keeps losing time to the point that it gets to like 9 minutes slow. Which, if it was a new internal movement, that wouldn't be happening. Again, the lighting to the alleyway, the lighting is in the alleyway is now working, and that was becoming a serious concern because walking through there, and Councillor Harrison will know that the way that alleyway comes from the White Way down to the High Street, it's pitch black through there at night. They repaired the lighting in the alleyway, but the lighting to the front of the building is still not working. But it's the same set of lights. Well, if you're going to get contractors to come out, get them to do the lot, not just one. So that's what we were looking at. What concerns me, and you touched on it when you said the list of 2.4 doesn't necessarily match the survey. But like I said previously, there are items on the survey that were identified as needing doing and haven't been done. And some of them do fall into the 2020-2021 columns. So again, we can potentially write those off as COVID kind of put stop to them, but we should be looking at them again. But if we're now looking at this is going to go into the bucket and then be looked at for further surveys, some of that work needs doing now. You go in there and there is plaster coming off the walls. Up until recently, we were renting this building with wallpaper hanging off, and it doesn't look good for. And when we did the proclamation there recently for the new king, you stand back and you look at the leaded lights at the front, and the brickwork above is hanging by a thread. So some of the bricks need repointing urgently before they fall. Any cars parked underneath, and that's going to be an insurance claim on the council. Just finally, to pick up on Councillor Darby's point again about the survey, I mean, I picked up on the coated wall, but also the leaded panels in the windows installed in 1987, and then also the suggestion that the building is heated from the heating system in the building next door. It's only heated if you leave the door open. There is no heating in the Guildhall. There never has been. Unless you've got the door open through to the offices, there is no heat.
Well, maybe your previous cabinet member didn't read the report.
I mean, respectfully to the cabinet member then, this was done in December 2018, shortly before an election.
Well, you'd have thought he'd have taken care. Okay, Councillor Hunt, and then Councillor Harrison.
Just on this, I mean, there's all this thing about who hasn't done something and who is doing something, but it does raise questions, I think, that in the offices, there's different officers that come and go, but somebody somewhere oversees this work, and there should be a team looking at all this, and for Councillor Derby to pick up that it, obviously the walls and everything, and heating, you leave a door open. Someone has looked at this report and should have picked up that those sort of things haven't been happening. It seems to be there's been no checks whatsoever. And as for officers, have we now got something in place where officers are going to be checking up when we do surveys again to make sure that everything in there is right, and do go forward, make sure that it's done properly?
That's the plan. So we are bringing in some interim support to oversee this process for about 6 months period that we can do that. But absolutely, as I said that in the report in the committee proper, we want to make sure this is all sequenced so that this feeds in the strategy, which feeds into the term maintenance contract, and they're seen as a piece of work collectively rather than separate pieces of work, which is perhaps what's happened in the past.
And I did like your comment on team. I think we have the fragments of a team, and you're trying to establish that now.
Yeah, so we have David, who's joined us as well as interim property manager. David with us until at least the end of February, and we'll be looking to give advice as well around what structure property to make sure this is driven correctly.
And because I think this is a thing about having the right skill set from discussion earlier, but these things don't happen overnight. Clearly, there has been an awful lot of work to do to try and put something that we've got so many old buildings. I think Tis Hazard was mentioned earlier. You know, this one where, quite honestly, they are an enormous maintenance liability. There's always something happening on them, and there always will be. continuing thing. Councillor Harrison.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the last meeting, because I'm just wondering why we've got a separate meeting to look at Guildhall Queenborough, which would surely be on the list of ones that we were going to be doing anyway. So we started to get a bit vulnerable in Queenborough and halfway ward, and 6 months before the election, we need to start raising stuff. As far as the things which Councillor Darby has raised, I have to be careful because this is an open meeting. It doesn't matter if you employ somebody to do a job, pointing, plastering. You don't employ them to do something that a kid of 5 could knock out. You employ them. If you employ a plasterer, you expect a proper plaster. If you employ somebody to do repointing, you expect stuff to be repointed. And I do know from somewhere else that I was, where people had been employed for many, many years. There had been many, many complaints by county councillors, and they'd been totally ignored. But the standard of work was appalling, and elected members had been ignored. Possibly the same thing has happened here. I don't know who we're talking about here. Well, I'm a bit cagey. So it isn't anything to do with, well, we don't have much of a budget. If you've got somebody on a list, they should be up to the work. Yeah. And if it's a term contract, these call-off things, if they're not up to the job, it doesn't matter when the term contract ends, dump them. Because the bottom line is, if we are shelling out taxpayers' money for a not very good job, it is actually a waste. It's a waste of my money. If somebody is going on long to redo a door, they need bother doing a bit of sanding down. Because a kid of 5 could get a paintbrush and put a paint, and we could do that free.
Yeah, but he could to show the fire, wouldn't got it all up the walls.
Right. Oh,
So my point is that unless we are employing hooky people, cash in hand and all the rest of it, there is no reason what on earth for us to have a core job from a term contract. And I think that should be taken up very seriously. Because I doubt it's the first time that people have complained about the standard of work. There was one within the last couple of years that I know some of us complained to Nick Vickers about. We shouldn't keep employing them. If it's a poor standard and there are complaints, you take them off the list. And by the way, I agree. That is pitch black, that alley.
okay. I've got Councillor Whiting, Councillor Bowen, Councillor Gibson, Councillor Hall.
Great, thanks, Madam Chair. A lot of the points I would like to have made have been made, and I support them. When we should be chasing to ensure that the work that's been done has been done properly, and where it's not being done properly, then there should be some punitive action taken against those that are charging the ratepayers a sly lot of money to do work that they're not doing properly, if that's the case. You may want to do political points, which I took in good faith, but I mean, the fact is that the administration has been in charge for 3 years now. So at some point, it has to start taking responsibility for what's not being done. And so that's just my comeback on that. To make sure that, are we sure that the work that we know that needs doing next year, in 2022-23, within the next financial year, that we have sufficient funds? I come back to budgets again, because we hear that we have to scope the work according to the budget we have. Now we've scoped the work, we know what needs doing, through the previous surveys and anything more work that's been done since. Do we have the money to do what needs doing in the next financial year? And if not, will the report come to us so that we can take a decision about whether we, again, ask for that money to be made available in the budget when it goes to P&R?
I think what we need to do first is have a look at the works prior to 22-23 and see what hasn't been done in that catch-up period, because as we've identified, things didn't happen during COVID, so we need an understanding of which of those works then happened when they couldn't, which haven't happened, and also what has emerged as new priorities since then. So I think I see the new condition surveys as providing that baseline, and we go from there with the costings and establishing what needs to be done. Of course, the costings in the report will need to be updated as well. We know inflation will put a big increase on those anyway, so those costings were set in 2018, they need to be uplifted.
Thanks for that. And so those things that were due to be done in 2020, as an example, they got pushed back through COVID. They're not automatically now falling on the to-do list. They're being reconsidered against new priorities that have come in.
It would vary from property.
And also what emergency stuff we had to do,
Yeah.
because there's been quite a substantial amount of that. And that takes priority, it's an immediate and urgent thing.
I suppose my core point, and Jen, was to do with the budget again.
Yeah.
And at what point we get to understand how much we are going to need,
The officers will feed that in at the
and that
moment.
we can then make sure that we're making the right request to P&R.
Okay,
Thank you.
councillor Bowen.
Thank you. Very briefly, as Harrison mentioned, it was one of the reasons why this particular paper is here, because it was agreed by the Sheppey Area Committee. They wanted it to come here, recommendation from them, and that's one of the reasons why here. I think, in my opinion, it may have also expedited the previous conversation about properties, which is also a good thing. My only final comment, and I'm not making, I don't not make political comments and stuff like that. I think, frankly, which whoever falls to the next administration, bluntly, whoever it is, must do better. Whether it's us, whether it's you, from the previous administration, from the current one, there are gaps which are showing failings. So that whoever it is, I mean, has got to do better than this. Having the survey from 2018, that we're only now thinking, they have cavity walls back then. Not great for anyone. Frankly, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gibson.
So it's really been said, it's like QA, even for me.
Yeah.
And if we haven't got that QA, we're now like a little bit more comfortable with just how that's sitting and how that works.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Hall.
Yes, thanks. These old buildings look the old hold. Don't you just have a caretaker that looks after these properties?
If only we had the money. If only we had the money for a caretaker.
Sorry?
Absolutely. If only we had the money for a caretaker. The caretaker, I don't think there's been a caretaker for a long, long time
It's
now.
quite a normal thing. Have a
Yes.
caretaker look
You would,
after.
yes, I agree.
And, you know, we wouldn't get to climax like this. You didn't have one.
Can I just ask one small question that's picking up on the point that Councillor Hall just made? With the court hall, for example, in Milton, which has been asset transferred to the museum trust, or whatever they call it, they're acting as that caretaker because they're in there every day. Now, we have some responsibilities for the external parts of that building, and they have responsibilities for the inside of it. But under that asset transfer, most of their liabilities went. But we do have them as caretakers, and I think looking forward, there may be some buildings when we do our survey and our condition reports, it may be worth flagging up those buildings where, like we did with allotments and like we did with the court hall and like we've done with one or two other buildings, that we consider those to be prime candidates for an asset transfer where they will be better looked after in the future than we perhaps can afford to do.
I think that will come out in due course. Let's go back to condition surveys. Councillor Harrison.
Just something Councillor Bowen just said, and this is not a political point, but it's that officer members. This was clearly done during your administration. Did any of you see it? It was a genuine question that we know that officers get on with certain jobs and never the twain. I'm just wondering whether it came past any members or just a cabinet member or what. I would have thought it'd been ideal for scrutiny or something. But I'm just interested to see whether any members had any eye over it. I'm thinking particularly Richard's thing, which about we didn't have cavity walls there.
I think that's the beauty, Madam Chair, of this system, where more members get the opportunity to see more of what's going on, and there's more of us casting an eye over.
Okay. I think Cameron, and then we'll wrap up.
I asked that specific question a year ago now, or a year and a half ago, when the clock tower first came to the front page. And I was told that it didn't go further than the head of property. So I should imagine that will be the same for every single one on that list from 2018.
Okay, it's changed, isn't it? Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, just quickly, something that's been said there, with the property that we've got that is being looked after, we've done the asset transfers, is anything going to be done to make sure that they're in the condition that they should be? Even though they've got others looking after it, we should be checking
But
that all those properties
that
are.
would depend on the terms of the lease agreement and as to what hooks and claws we've got.
There should be within leases that it can be inspected.
So obviously there are assets where they've been let out and then they come back to us in poor condition. Master's House is a really good example, but equally it wasn't maintained at all. It got to the point where we wouldn't have been able to let it without doing something really major with it. I think this absolutely highlights what happens. This is just small stuff here, relatively speaking. But the condition surveys, just doing a foundation with a good QA, going out and doing a proper assessment that's robust, and you won't get someone telling you it's cavity wall and clearly there's no being cavity wall. And it doesn't take qualified surveyor to work that.
That's my point though. We've got properties out there that we then get back in a poor state.
Yeah.
And people should be looking after them. We need to be checking that those ones.
Quite honestly, with what we've got with our portfolio, we are dealing with, I suppose, almost crisis management with our portfolio because of the state that some of them in. We need to do the baseline study. We've done emergency works, several, just to, make sure that they're okay and continue that they don't fall down, keel over, or the roof doesn't cave in. This is very desirable and needed piece of work. I'm a bit frustrated that this came as a separate meeting, quite honestly, because we've dealt with condition surveys. I think it was clear though that we've had a resourcing issue internally, and David, who was on earlier, has only just appeared with us in the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, so David joined us at the end of July for a couple of weeks, but was then off the whole of August for a holiday commitment, 30 days a week for 2 weeks in July. Since the start of September, he's been with us 3 days a week, so now we can really get to ramp up what we're pushing through to him.
So, this has taken, I understand why it's brought here, but from a chair point of view and a committee point of view, is we need reports coming before us for a decision. Tonight, the only thing we can say, the decision here, is to support inclusion, which we've already agreed in condition surveys earlier. We are here to make decisions. We're not here for updates. We can ask for updates, and I'm happy actually to circulate updates as and when they come through when necessary. But when it comes to making decisions, we've got to make them and make them in a timely fashion. The more time that's spent writing reports, the less time there is on doing what I call the critical property management, which is really, because this requires properties input. So.
Sorry I'm confused then, because my understanding of advice that we've been given in our group from Larissa, from the Chief Exec, is that these committees do have a role in monitoring and scrutinising and understanding what's going on.
As the
Not
decision is
simply,
made.
not simply just to make a decision, but to monitor things and monitor progress to ensure that we're moving forward. And that doesn't always involve a decision. And you're suggesting that it should.
It's as you make a decision, so you'll scrutinise at the same
It's
time.
not just updating,
No.
but it is a script wrong.
And
Absolutely, that's quite clear from
That's what we
the
said.
note I saw from Larissa, it was quite clear that we have that role as a committee to scrutinise and be updated on that.
can we move to the vote, please? Because I think we're going to go around in circles. So I'd like us to move to the vote on this. So I'll propose this. Who would like to second it? Councillor Burke. Okay, right, those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, meeting closed. You're all free to go home.
What we doing with the blue papers?
Giving them to Billy.